then you can access it on the Freedom Slips archives. Her shows are awesome. I mean, she is awesome, and she has got books out. She also has documentaries out. I think it's on Amazon. I'm pretty sure you can buy it there. But like I said, you can just Google her as well. Go to her website, and for $5 a month, you can access her archives. Not just her archives, everybody's archives, including ours. You can also get us on YouTube. Now, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners custodians of the land. For me, that's the Daruk people in Pemmelway here, and for Dave,
it's the Dark and Young.
The Dark and Young, and we like to pay our respects to elders past, present, and future. So, look, I'm not sure what happened.
I think I've got an understanding of what happened, guys.
Okay, go ahead. What happened, my friend? Because I tried to dial in. Go on. Yep.
Yeah, look, I've been trying to dial in for a long time now. Bruce, who's I think supposed to be on Studio B.
Okay.
Yeah. They accidentally dialed into Studio A, and then we couldn't get it because it was engaged.
I see.
It all seems to make sense. When I posted in the chat room that it was going on, they jumped out and said sorry. Then they've jumped on B, where they should be. Thank you very much. Where they should be on Studio B.
Radio, that makes sense.
Just letting everyone know that this is the 7th year that we've been on A in this time slot. So unless Hawk has other plans, guys, just to make sure you check your schedule. No, I'm not. No offense to you guys. Well done for having a show. I mean, it's awesome. This is what you can do. You see, you dial in, you become part of it, do some roundtables, and if you're lucky, Hawk says, you know what? Why don't you have a show? All right, I'll do that. And that's how it all began with us. So.
That's how it began in the beginning. And thus was the Word, and the Word was good.
And God spake.
He spoketh.
Yes.
He spakent. He spakent unto the mountain. And the mountain said, let there be Dave, and let there be Mackie, and let them speak of shiny things that are inside out.
Oh, very nicely done. I was going to say it. And the number of the counting should be 3, no more, no less.
No more or less. Not 4. Not 2, but 3.
5 is right out. So you're going to be a Monty Python fan to get that joke, and I hope you are.
I hope so.
Did you know it only costs $5.95 to join the archives, to get access to the archives? Not just access to our archive, but all of the station hosts' archives, all of their shows, with all of their great guests, and you could listen to Solaris's show like a podcast, right? They're MP3s. You can grab them, you can pull them down. Don't use them for profit, but you can have your archive there, and you can listen in your own time. And I think that's just tremendous. And it's a great thing that Hawk has put together here. So we suggest you do that, because even on YouTube, you hear us talking about Solaris. You don't know who she is. I absolutely recommend going in there and listening to a great guest. So yeah, Mackie, good afternoon to you, or good morning, or good night, wherever you are.
Good afternoon. It's afternoon. I'm just 20 odd kilometers away from you. 40 kilometers maybe.
Yeah, that'll do.
That'll do it. That'll be fine. All right, good. Now, what else is happening? We had an interesting week. I tell you what. There's this guy. You sent me that little link. Okay, this is what it says here. This is from World News Daily, clearly one of the more reputable news sources on the internet. A man turned himself into the police in Jerusalem this morning, which was May 18, which is now probably about 9 days ago, claiming he's not only a time traveler, but also the killer of Jesus Christ. There you go. We know now. The man, this is the interesting bit. The man who only speaks in Latin identified himself as the Roman centurion Gaius Longinus Anxiomus and claimed to be a time traveler from the 1st century AD. Now, it actually happens that Longinus was the centurion who did allegedly stab Jesus Christ in the side with his spear, hence the spear of Longinus, the spear of destiny, blah, 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 all that stuff.
That makes sense, right?
Yeah, but if he's another, at least he's in character.
He has to stay in character until at least.
But no, it goes it goes even further. He also has the letters SPQR, which means Senatus Populusque Romanum, right? Which means the Senate and the people of Rome, on his arm, right? So every Roman legionary had SPQR tattooed on their body, because it literally, like I said, it means the Senate and the people of Rome, or for the Senate and the people of Rome. And so I'm telling you, this is interesting. If it's true, I don't know if it's not. It's not the 1st of April, so. But it's a.
a DNA test could show lineage there.
Yeah.
Mitochondrial DNA would suggest that he was an old soul. Yeah. That his birth line went back at least that far.
Now it also says here that God, like the guy here claims that God tormented and tortured him for almost 2,000 years to punish him for his crimes. Yeah? He claims he turned himself in because it was part of the deal with God to be freed from his divine punishment.
Yeah, but
so the story is completely self-consistent. No, it's great.
It's
right?
I like how it's self-consistent, but I'm just gonna put something out there. This was my first thought when I read it. All right, so you've turned yourself into the authorities of the country who killed him, right? Okay, like you didn't go to Rome and do it, yeah.
Yeah, no, but hang on. I mean, so Jesus was crucified in Jerusalem, right?
Yes.
And it was done so, okay, under the, I guess, the authority of Rome at the time. The I think Pontius Pilate was the governor, the Roman governor, but it was the people of Palestine, the Palestinian people, because it was Palestine back then. It wasn't Israel. That voted, because there was a vote between Barabbas and Jesus, and Barabbas was like a rebel rouser, a man of the people, blah blah blah, and they chose to let Barabbas go because it was a special holiday and the people could vote whom they wanted to give amnesty to, and Jesus just came up short. So,
Baga.
Yeah, but there's more to it. I mean, this is actually transpired in March, it seems. Fake news, man claiming. Here we go. This is March 20th, 2018. And what it says here, hoax alert, lead stories. Now, is it a hoax? Yeah, well, it might very well be a hoax. I don't know. I just think it's hilarious. A man did not put himself in for the killing of Jesus Christ. The story originated on the satire website World News Daily Report. Blah blah blah. So it's probably not true. It's fiction. Still, I like it. I like self-consistent stories. It's hilarious, right?
I've got to say their research was good enough.
Yeah.
To entitle it to come to boil to the top. Otherwise, we wouldn't have seen it. We wouldn't be able to talk about it.
It's funny. But it would be so cool if it were true. Come on. Anyway, that was a bit of fun.
But
there's some stuff that's.
The thing I trouble with that one is that he's a time traveler, and yet God was persecuting him for it.
Yeah. So I guess he was just very.
And then somehow, as a time traveler, he then arrived in this time. Yeah, does it make sense? Like, through what mechanism was he traveling in time? I don't know.
Doesn't matter. It's time travel. Hurrah!
In time for some reason.
But yeah, look, it's all good. But there's some interesting other things that came through this week, and again, Dave pushed that through. You know how we always say that we don't know everything, and it's true, and timelines are being pushed further and further back, and other things as well. So there's now another discovery, paleontological discovery, fossils that were found, and it changes a major paleontological theories here, right? So it's so sea lilies, which they just found fossils of, were previously thought to be or have become extinct about 66 million years ago. However, it seems they were around as close as 33 million years ago. Now you think that's 33, 66, what's the difference? Right? It's a long time ago. Well, the difference is because 33 million years is an age. right? Geologically speaking, and so we got it wrong. So what else did we get wrong? I would think a lot,
Probably
but
heaps.
yeah. So all of a sudden, in fact, might they still exist somewhere in deep sea trenches? I don't know, maybe. But the point is that all these timelines we've come up with are, I mean, they're our best guesses at the moment. So
And
you have
that's
to,
you've got to understand. That you're right, Mickey. That's what they are. They're
yeah.
guesses.
And people, scientists do try their best to get it right, and that's all cool, right? I mean, you gotta give them credit for that. But the problem is that we nowhere near the end of what we could or should know. So we need to be open-minded. Is the point? We need to be open-minded about well, pretty much everything, right? So human beings are 200,000, 300,000 years old, whatever, blah blah blah. Okay, I disagree, but fair enough. That's what we think right now. I think there's lots of evidence going the other way as well. But even within that time span, and this is going to the ancient civilization or high tech civilizations, and even visitors that could have been part of that ancient high tech civilization or civilizations. It's around the fact that there could have been 15 or 20 in that time. Our civilization, recorded history, I want to give it 10,000 years. It's less, but let's call it 10,000 years from soup to nuts. That's us, right? 10,000 years. From what we can gather, and before that it's prehistory and it's murky. We lived in caves, all that wonderful stuff. But we've been around for 25 times that amount, right? 25 times 10,000 years, potentially, probably longer in my opinion. But let's say officially accepted 250,000 years. So theoretically, in that time, we could have had a civilization like this 25 times. 25 times. And if there were a cataclysm, a catastrophe, a meteor hitting the world, or a massive super volcano eruption, or maybe we just all died from a disease, who knows? But in that time, we could have done this 25 times. Okay, we could have gone back to basics, just scratching in the dirt, and banging some rocks together, to looking at space flight yet again. So, just to put it in perspective. And I believe that human beings, or some form of a human being, is a lot older than that even, right? And there's a lot of anecdotal evidence for that as well. And some concrete, rock solid, pardon the pun, evidence. If you remember the footprints. Do we remember the footprints? And you know what science didn't talk about? It's we have a problem, because there are a whole bunch of footprints in what was then the mud, which is now solid stone, of species that shouldn't have coexisted, and that's a problem for science. What they don't talk about at all are the human-like footprints. I'm not going to say human footprints. I think there might be, but they're human-like footprints. They're completely silenced out of the room. it's like, hey, if we don't talk about it, it'll just go away.
Yeah, like what about the tire tracks, Becky, in South Africa?
Oh, tire? Yes. I mean, what?
They're wheel tracks that were in mud, and they've been uncovered, but they're now solid in rock.
Rock. They have petrified. Petrified. They've turned to rock. Then that takes a long time, a very, very long time. Yeah. So anyway, point is that news story goes to show that we're still learning, and we're still pushing back dates. And of course, the scientific community that has built their careers on these things, which I also understand, is loath to move and change. Yeah, well, it's true though.
Absolutely, I'm laughing because it's true.
Yeah. Anyway, so look, that and I don't want to talk about politics too much, because I'm sure Dave will, but I'm gonna say really. That's all I'm gonna say.
That's it. That's all you got.
All
right. So, wow. Okay. Well, I suppose you're throwing me politics to talk about. If I'm good at segues and detecting them, Mickey, that's a segue of a gigantic segue. All I hear every single day is a rehash of the same thing over and over again, and every once in a while in the tumble cycle. Say you had, a dryer a clothes dryer with only one blue sock in it, and everything else was, I don't know what. Choose a color, Mickey. Purple, right? If there was
Purple!
only one purple, thank you. If there was only one green sock in a full 15-kilo load in a dryer, tumble dryer, and every once in a while you saw that green sock through the little glass window in the front, right? That's how much change I'm seeing in the news. It's the same story all the time. That's the purple clothes, and every once in a while you get a glimpse of something new. The 24-hour news cycle has absolutely nothing in it. Let's do was it Steve Colbert? He says there's not much meat on the news bone.
He's funny.
He is.
If you haven't watched
I
it,
really like.
He's a funny. Oh, me too. He's a funny guy.
Yeah. I've seen him in Seinfeld's Comedians in Cars as well. He's a very funny guy. But what's really funny is that the Russian interference in American politics news item just keeps coming around. I don't want to see it. I don't even care, and I don't even think it's real. Honestly, I don't think it's real at all. But they want it. They've got to have some kind of common enemy, and I think that's really what they did with that story, right? They didn't say everybody's doing it. No one's admitting that anyone's interfered in anyone else's politics, because it's completely true. I've actually many different socks over eons of time. Absolutely. Wild Bob in the chat room there. But I've heard a story recently that Australia was doing the same in China. And that was maybe an 8-second phrase from a full news piece live on air. And there was, it just came out. It wasn't the topic of the story, it just, happened. And it wasn't one of those stories, Mickey, you know me, I watch the other news. I don't watch the 6 o'clock news in the evenings. I don't watch the main hourly news. I watch the stories build, and then you see them not appear in the news. So these stories are continually coming to light during the day, and they have a quick cross, and then that's the end of that. And they're the ones that I focus on, because that's where the real news is. It's when they've constructed and ended up with a formulated, agreed news slant that I disagree with that news. That's where it vaporizes to me, and I don't see it anymore. All I see is how the news story got to where it was, and then they throw this slant on it, and I don't like that. So, because I'll tell you, everyone has a slant. Every news outlet has their own slant. They have, a guided government message that they must portray. However that is, and however the story evolves and comes to light, they're going to have to mold that into their way and their pitch and their political sway, if you want to put it that way. Because, the CNNs of the world aren't the Foxes of the world, and I don't believe any of those are entirely legitimate news sources. But they both lead in opposite directions from each other, let's put it that way. But anyway, so Trump, North Korea, South Korea, and all of the politics going on at the moment, and then additionally in your own countries, and where we are, it was all about tax relief, then no tax relief, and then and while Bob said I should just maybe kill my television. Elvis did that, didn't he? He shot his television because he didn't like what was on.
There you go.
But he actually used to watch a number of televisions at once. And so did Benny Hill, believe it or not. So this is the thing. This is where we're at. And these news stories just keep going around in circles. So I think Trump, being the businessman and wanting deals to be made, is the person who's attempting to, using the right tools and the right people and the right wording, is really attempting to get North and South Korea together. And if the goal is that it becomes one peninsula, woohoo, fantastic. But I'll tell you, my Samsung phone's going to get more expensive. It's currently using slave labor from the North, but anyway, it doesn't matter. Will it happen? Will they become one country again? And can this change, 50 years of fighting? I think it's a good part of our planet to do this thing, right? To move forward with peace. But I'm not going to call for world peace, because then I just get killed. That's just every other person who's wanted peace anywhere just ends up dead. Well, you can have all the wars you want as long as the outcome is neutral, right? Is that right? So you can keep spending all your money on weapons as long as no one gets killed, and as the outcome's neutral. But the big news story that I think is still the news story, and I'm still following it, and that's Kilauea. And there's still news stories coming out now and reports that the crack across the southern face is similar to what was previously known as the Helena slump. So the Helena slump is now, I think, at 80 centimeters, nearly 3 foot. And it could go. And there's the USGS has instruments now, Meki. They've thrown millions of dollars worth of instruments all over that southern face. If it was simply like all the other eruptions and just a bit of lava, who cares? No one cares, right? A bit of lava, some houses, real estate gone. They could just resell that real estate in a couple of years' time. Who cares? And I feel sorry for the people who have to move, and I feel sorry for the people who bought into that thinking that that's just going to be a volcano that just goes off, once in 100 years. Nah. So 80 centimeters, nearly a yard, it has slumped so far. And if it goes, there'll be, and there's revised figures, Mickey, I sent you an image. Revised figures to about 7 meters in Sydney, but between 20 and 30 meters of tsunami around the equal latitudes from Hawaii. And around the backside of the island, it's double the height of the slump at the front. So if it comes down 20 meters at the front, then it'll be 40 meter tsunami exactly on the opposite side when both wave crests merge together, and you get an accumulation of both those wave heights to be 40 meters. So that's a lesson learned from before. There's lots of learnings from the previous times. I think 1928 or something was the last time. So the slump is pretty serious. It's a real thing, and we have to be wary of the possible outcome. And I think the most important part is to keep your eye on the news. The first affected country would be Hawaii. All right, so that's the first place you've got to listen out for news. Put your search and news report filters to be filtering out that kind of info, so that for notifications, so you know what's going on. Certainly, I think there's 20 minutes to 30 minutes for Southern California, and where we are, we're a number of hours away, so we'll probably have the most opportunity to get into safety. But the last point I want to make is that it's happened before, and there's evidence of it before, and it's just a matter of time now. It's just a matter of time. Everyone, Meki, since I read that story out last week about the 400,000 people fleeing California into Arizona, that whole thing that occurred this week, where they were just trialing all of their response teams and how they would deal with that kind of influx of people. That happened this week. So I'm just saying, things don't line up like this unless something's going on. So
no, that's true.
Keep your eyes out. All right. Over to you, esteemed co-host Mickey.
Thank you, Dave. Look, interestingly enough, we're going to talk about mythical creatures today, and just on that, just in the last few weeks, three strange creatures showed up just to help us, with our show here. Clearly,
no.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So there's a wolf-like creature which was shot near Montana, and you think, well, big deal. So what? Now, I'll share it on the in the chat as well. You can have a look there. But essentially, it's not a wolf. And I mean, these people see wolves. I mean, they're ranchers, right? Essentially, it's the teeth were too short. The front paws are abnormally small, and the claws are too large. Right, so it is not a wolf. It is a wolf-like creature, but it's not a wolf. Now I think they're going to yes, they have sent off some DNA samples. Furthermore, the ears are too big, the legs look a little short, and the feet, like I said, looks a little small. And the coat also appears to look weird for a wolf. And look at it, it's more brownish in color than a wolf.
Do you have a link to that, Mickey?
Yes, I'm actually just about to. Here we go. I am popping it everywhere. There's one here, and you can share it with the chat, my friend. Awesome. So that's one. So that's a cryptoid, or a creature we don't really know. Some think it might be a coy wolf, a coyote wolf hybrid, or a wolf dog breed. It's too far north. For a chupacabra, they say, and it doesn't really look like a chupacabra, to be honest. Others think it might be direwolf. Direwolves were gigantic. Okay, so no, I don't think it's that. And apparently, there are about 900 wolves left in Montana state. So, I mean, while you don't see them every day, people know when a wolf, when they see it. This is not that. So, in the chat, and I'll probably put it in the show notes as well.
All right.
You can have a look at the pictures. They're really good pictures. There's a pencil on the creature's head for comparison. And it doesn't look like a wolf. I mean, it looks like a large, a bear, dog. I don't know. It's weird, right? But anyway, just make up your own mind. But there's more. There was a creature that was washed up on Rossley Beach. Yeah. And it looks like a sort of like a crocodile, or at least the head looks like a crocodile. It's a really weird thing. And again, So it's it looks. Could it be dinosaur? Well, maybe not. But the point is, again, we don't really know what it is. It's somewhat decomposed, but the skeleton is all there, and it doesn't look like any creature that I've seen. It looks like some other creatures, but it's not exactly the same. So that's really weird, right? And then, before you know it, there was something that washed up in Port Talbot as well, 1 week earlier. And that thing was, sorry, so this one here was, how long were you? 1.52 meters, which is 5 feet. So this creature was 5 feet long, 1.52 meters. And then in Port Talbot, a week earlier, a creature that was 3.35 meters washed up. 11 feet. And I look at it here, and I'm going to give you the link for that as well. Now that creature, crocodile-ish. I mean, it's bone. I mean, it's got a skeleton, right? I mean, it's not a jellyfish or anything. It's a substantial creature with a spine and a very long tail. So, and again, it doesn't look like a fish. It's really, really interesting. But look, you have to make up your own mind as to what this might be, because again, we're quite happy to have this happen while we have the show on mythical creatures. But again, to the state of science, there's still things being washed up that we just can't identify immediately, which is amazing, because we should be able to identify these things immediately, right? That's really what we're good at. I mean, we categorize things. We take pictures, we draw them, and then we've got the biological. We've got the families and the phyla, and that's what we're good at. But no, these three creatures, two sea creatures and one wolf-like creature, turn up, and they can't be clearly or readily identified. Others might say, and this is where it gets shiny side outy, that our dimensions might be colliding. Yeah. So what do I mean by that? So everybody, and this is going a bit out there, but everybody knows about the Large Particle Accelerator, the Hadron Collider. You cannot know. You cannot not know about it unless you just arrived in this dimension from another Mandela effect. And it's so as soon as they turned it on, the people said, "Oh, they're going to create a black hole. It's going to suck the universe into nothingness. We're all going to die." Didn't happen. But other things might have happened. Did we open I don't know, a rift, a crack, a tear in space time? Are other dimensions bleeding through? Have they been bleeding through for a long time? Or this is just another one of those, maybe on a larger scale? Is this why we're having all these Mandela effect type phenomena happening? Are these creatures somehow, coming into our reality more readily than before? Because I do believe that Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Alma, Yeti, the big black dogs, some other creatures as well. I mean, there's the Chupacabra, of course. Everyone knows that. There's Jumpin' Jack, I think, in Jersey. That? The Jersey Devil.
Is it Chimera?
Chimera.
Yeah.
They are the hybrid creatures of legend as well. Look, there's a lot of that happening. Not to forget, the lake monsters and so forth. So is this what it is? I don't know. But I just want to be clear here that we do not know yet what these creatures are. Can we identify them? Sure, I'm sure we can eventually, and I would suggest that that'll happen readily enough. But it's just interesting to see that we can still come across something, well, that seems fairly mundane, but it leaves us completely stumped, because it's not usual. It's not a usual kind of occurrence or visual display on these creatures. And this one in Rossili Beach, that looks really, I don't know, it looks odd. It's like a tail on it. There's a tail on this thing, not a fish tail, but like a tail of a rat. All right, and the head looks a bit like an alligator head. And the other creature here, that washed up, like I said, 3.5 meters. That's a big thing, and that look. I mean, it's got a solid skeleton. Like you can see, its spine and the tail there. So what is it?
The one that's on the white sand.
Yes,
that's tropical sand because of how white it is.
Actually, that's Rossili. That's where's Rossili? Let me see. Actually, I don't know where Rossili is. In Gowan. Let me just. Okay, Rossili Beach on Gower. Let me see where that's physically located.
While you're looking.
Yep, I think it's actually in England, Wales. I think it's Wales.
Wow. Okay, because there's no legs on that creature that I can see. The one that's on the sand on its own. It does have the snout, a rounded snout, which sort of looks alligator-ish, but the teeth don't match. The tail doesn't match because it doesn't have the spinal protrusions on the top of it. The rib cage looks a little big, but it looks like it would have been it looks like it's collapsed.
It's in Wales.
Yeah. Okay. So it could very well just be a sea creature. The long tail could assist in the swimming.
Yeah.
100%.
Like I said, though, I mean, it doesn't look like a fish, right? And it doesn't look like a dolphin or a whale either. So most resembles, even though the tail is completely wrong and the skin seems to be wrong, a crocodile. But clearly there shouldn't be a crocodile in Wales. It's similar with the other skeleton where you really only see the
teeth are too fine as well. Have you seen the teeth on it?
Yeah, look, that's right. So again, mystery creature, right? it's just anyway. So yeah, I thought it's. I think it's important that we bring this to you just to make the point that we're not quite at the end of anything yet, and these mystery creatures still lurk about, even if they're genetic aberrations. Okay, it still goes to show that we can be taken by surprise, even though we think we know everything.
That is a good point. Meki, last week we were talking about the creatures which, if you try to describe them to an audience who, well, they're unfamiliar with the creature, and you're trying to describe it in words that they'd understand, like try to explain the platypus. There's a creek not very far from here that has platypus in it. So it's got a duck bill, but it's got fur and there's no feathers, and it's sort of like got rodent hands. Yeah. But it swims in underwater. It breathes air, which is unusual, and it's a mammal. Okay, that's really weird. It has a spike on its hind leg, which is spider venom in it. Am I missing anything?
No, that's about right.
Right? And you go, sorry, no, it's got snake venom. Snake venom in its barb. It's like, okay, so it's a duck, rodent, beavery kind of thing with a snake bite. What? So if you're an artist trying to do an artist's impression of it, you would just get it wrong, right? The description, the descriptive parts of it are correct. The scientific parts of it, they make sense too. But to say it's the only one on the entire planet and there isn't any real way of being able to work out how it came to be. Genetically, it doesn't seem to make sense. How could it have all of these things? Because, you know, as much as I've always wanted to, and willed it to happen, I don't have a barb on my leg with snake venom in it.
Why not?
I don't know.
I for one, am disappointed, but you know, it's okay.
I don't know. So yeah, it's a very difficult thing to explain. So there might have been a whole nother, because there's soft tissue creature, a whole nother line of creatures that we just don't have any record for. And that's the same kind of thing that we keep talking about all the time. This is, we know very little, maybe 1% of the true history of everything. We don't know anything about it. We've got a couple little examples here, and Neki loves this, and it's most of the fossils are found underwater. They're not on land, believe it or not. Meki, what I did during the week, I put together a little slide deck. So as we're talking, there's a whole bunch of mythical creatures.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
So I'm sorry that I haven't really been too attentive to the videos recently, and I'm going to get my webcams, we're going to get all that back up and running again. There's been some requests for it, so I appreciate
it. Really?
Yeah,
really?
Yeah.
No, why would anyone want to see us? I don't believe you. You lie! What?
Yeah, radio personalities are usually, best on radio. Best seen on radio. I also gave you a nice image during the week, Mickey, which is the timeline for Greek mythology.
Oh yes.
It's really interesting, and it lines up the mythical creatures and when they appeared too. It's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
All right, so just letting everyone know, this is show number 324.
Yes, 420 and 300.
Nicely done. I love the echo. I like to read that one in. So this is Mythical Creatures Part 2. We've already spoken and done a show so far, and we're getting through the show notes, but there's quite a bit to get through, and there's so many. And I know I did that thing Meki asked last week. I did my research this week to have a look at Wikipedia to see how many mythical creatures that they had listed, and I was astounded.
Yes.
Astounded at how many there are. I mean, it's some list.
It's nuts. It's in fact, we're going to go through some of the more interesting ones with you here and there. They're grouped by well, not really by phyla, I guess, but by association. And we're also going to, I don't know if we're going to do it today, but we also put together a few creatures that actually existed, that were the base for mythical creature. And then we've got some really strange mythical creatures, which you probably have never heard of, like the squonk. I had never heard of the squonk. I don't know, Dave, did you hear of the squonk? I hadn't.
It's not something that is widely spoken about, let's put it that way.
And then there's
not in Australia.
Nah, exactly. And then there's the Impundulu again. Dave, I think might have heard of it. I hadn't. The Pug Wudgies. Yeah, no, these are all things. Okay, but then we will also talk about some fairy tale creatures that actually did roam the earth. Yeah. Oh, you're going, what? That's crazy talk. Not really. Not really. In fact, and some of them are still alive today. So we'll talk about that as we progress through this show cycle. But it's just look, this show I think is just a lot of good fun. I think it's just interesting to look at it and then think, well, is it possible? You know, and the answer is, well, why not? Why wouldn't it be? We're also going to have a show, or not a show, but we're also going to talk about some Finnish mythical creatures, because they're just crazy. We're gonna include them at some later point as well. So anyway, go on.
Just before we start, included in that image cycle is a bunny rabbit with antlers, long fangs, and bird wings.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, if you had to describe a creature that had those kind of attributes,
yeah.
You know, that's where I was going with this. And you have to sort of have this approach that if the creature existed and you were trying to tell someone else, how would you describe it to them? Yeah. So there's a lot of, imagine if this was just like a police record of people saying, I saw a, and then fill the blank in.
Yeah.
All right, and then the police officer puts the pencil and the notepad back in his pocket and says, "Thank you very much," and backs away from the person slowly. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's, you can't imagine how many have been off the list, because this list is of those mythical creatures which became lore.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they are.
Yep.
We didn't make them up. I mean, this is the list of them. Yeah, and there are more. So, Meki, what's the first one?
Well, the first one is it's birds and serpents, right? That's the first family of creatures we're looking here, and you probably all heard of it. It's called the basilisk. Now, while you might have heard the name, you may not understand necessarily what the creature actually represents. Now, Harry Potter, you know that the basilisk is the mortal enemy of the phoenix and all that wonderful stuff, right? Now, most often depicted as a reptile, the basilisk is reputed to be king of serpents, one of the most feared of all mythological beasts. A basilisk is said to have the power to cause death with a single glance, turning to stone, in fact. In this aspect, it bears similarity to the gorgons of Greek mythology. So these creatures could turn into stone. In fact, Medusa was one of the gorgons. You know, she had a snake. You know, the lady with the snakes instead of hair. Yeah, she was a gorgon, and she could turn you to stone. Dave.
The Chinese dragon is next, also appearing in other East Asian cultures. It is also sometimes called the Oriental or Eastern dragon. The Chinese dragon is easily recognizable for its long, serpentine body that is generally wingless, and its anthropomorphic face complete with beard. The Oriental dragon is generally considered a supernatural or spiritual symbol of heavenly power. And it's also, Meki, the one that's used in festivals.
Yeah.
It's depicted, you know, with someone holding the head on a stick and a large mouth, large eyes, and a long body.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, interestingly, the European dragon, which we're going to talk about next, is the exact opposite. While the Eastern dragon, like, you know, from the Asian dragon, is usually associated with good luck and as a positive omen, or even, you know, divine or heavenly power. The Western dragon is the exact opposite. Typically depicted as a large and powerful serpent or other reptile, it has magical or even spiritual qualities. The most famous being the ability to breathe fire from their mouths. Now, that's something that the Oriental dragons do not do, interestingly, right? More often than not, dragons were considered malevolent, associated with evil supernatural forces, and the natural enemy of humanity. So it's completely polar opposite in many ways of the Eastern dragon.
You know, and who slayed the dragon, Mickey?
St. George.
There you go. So it also follows in line with with that story also follows in line with the mythological dragon. I want to do this justice, Meki, but is that Fen Huang?
I think so. Yeah.
Oh, listen to me go.
I know, right?
I'm not fig jam, by the way. I heard that expression the other day. Sometimes called the Chinese phoenix, the Feng Huang is a symbol of summer and spiritual balance, along with the dragon. Is that Qilin or Quilin? Qilin?
Quilin, yeah.
Yeah. And tortoise is one of the most highly revered creatures in Chinese tradition. Its appearance is said to indicate some great event or to bear testimony to the greatest of a ruler. It is often viewed as the sacred union of male and female, Feng being male and Huang female. But also the Fen Huang can be regarded as a female entity in relation with the male dragon. Wow.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Again, the theme of the phoenix here is firebird. In Slavic, which is Eastern European, I guess from Russia all the way down to the Balkans, folklore, the firebird is a magical glowing bird from a faraway land, usually described as a large bird with majestic plumage that glows brightly, emitting red, orange, and yellow light. The firebird is both a blessing and a bringer of doom to its captor. The feathers of the firebird continue glowing when removed, and are able to provide light for a large room. Thus, the firebird is much prized and often the subject, or the object, rather, of a difficult quest in fairy tales.
Wow. It's not the northern blue. What beautiful plumage. Sorry, everyone. Phoenix, characterized as a bird with brightly colored plumage. After a long life, the phoenix dies in a fire of its own making, only to rise again from the ashes.
I know. And again, the phoenix, of course, for us is the most famous. That's the one we are most familiar with in the West. It symbolizes rebirth, immortality, and renewal, obviously. Could it exist? Look, with all of these creatures, it's hard to say yay or nay, because there's some crazy animals alive today. Okay, with some astounding capabilities. Is self-immolation beyond the realm of the possible? Well, not really. I want to, and the reason I say this is I want you to think about the jellyfish. There's this jellyfish who doesn't die. So this is sort of the phoenix of the ocean, which is a real creature. What it does, it regresses to its
nymph state.
Yeah, exactly. So essentially, there's an adult, and it gets younger and younger and younger as you go along until it reaches that exact the original state, and then it starts getting older again. So it's it expands, contracts, if you will, in a way, but it doesn't die. So that could be seen as a phoenix-like thing, right? If you think about it, it's sort of it rebirths itself by regressing to its younger state. So I don't want to dismiss the phoenix out of hand.
No, and I've got something else to add to that. The Australian gum tree survives by fire.
Yeah,
that's its like replication tool.
Yeah,
that's how it germinates, is by fire.
That's an excellent point. Yeah, I'm saying without fire, the Australian flora would be completely screwed, right? Completely screwed. So now, the next one is called the Ziz, which is a giant bird in Jewish mythology. The Ziz is the counterpart in the air of the behemoth, a giant creature of the land, and Leviathan, the giant creature of the water. The Ziz is said to be large enough to be able to block out the sun with its wingspan. On top of that, there's something called a roc, R-O-A-C-H, as well as a thunderbird. Now, the thunderbird is part of Native American folklore, whereas the roc is part of Middle Eastern folklore. And if you read Sinbad, for example, so Sinbad actually tied himself to the feet of a roc to pull him from a valley full of diamonds, and that's how he made one of his fortunes, right? So this myth of giant birds is not unique to a specific location. It's pretty much all over the world. So does it mean it's a myth? Not at all. I mean, we do know that these gigantic creatures in the air existed. There's the pteranodon, right? And the Archaeopteryx, which were very large, I guess, bird, dinosaur, intermediaries. But they certainly were very large. There's no reason why large flying birds can't exist. The condor is a very, very large bird, but the thunderbird, of course, the ziz and the rock, they're much larger than that yet. And no reason at all why that's not possible. I mean, we do know that there used to exist megafauna, right? I mean, we talk about gigantic sloths, gigantic saber-toothed tigers, mammoths, which were gigantic elephants. Why not? Oh wow, why not large birds as well? And clearly, fossilization is a difficult process. So don't go away after the break. We'll come back with mythical creatures. Donate if you can. This is listener funded radio.
Station. Its programs and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
You're back with David Mackey's Shiny Side Out on freedomslips.com. That's the #1 listener-supported talk radio on the net. So push the donate button or subscribe to the archives for only $5.95 a month. That's right, you can get access to everybody's shows on Freedom Slips. I'd like to say hello to all of the new listeners we have today. We're glad you're on board, and we hope your journey is an easy one. Whatever shook you up out of your cage, woke you up, and brought you over to this side of the media, well done you. And, if you want to tell us about that journey, you can. It's Dave at Shiny Side Out or Mecky at shinysideout.net. It is .net. You can get in contact with us. Propose a show, if you like, or a topic. Happy to research it. Happy to contact you. And I'm just glad you're a part of it. Mecky, are you back? Not yet.
I am.
That dang mute button.
I know,
does
right?
it every time.
Cool. Look, now we're coming to lake or loch monsters. Loch is a Scottish lake, which
in my belly.
in Germanic. In German now, but in Germanic, Loch just means hole.
Oh.
So, yeah, Loch means hole. So Loch, yeah, which is, it makes sense to reasons. It's a hole in the ground filled with water. So lake monsters or Loch monsters is the name given to large unknown animals which have purportedly been sighted in and or are believed to dwell in fresh waters. Also, their existence has never been confirmed scientifically in peer-reviewed literature. Yeah, I added that. They are generally believed not to exist by conventional zoology and allied sciences. I love that turn of phrase. Zoology and allied sciences. Clearly, allied science is another science we can take seriously. Everything else is complete nonsense. They are generally believed, and are principally the subject of investigations by followers of cryptozoology, followers. So if you're a scientist, you're an adherent, all right, of zoology. But if you're a cryptozoologist, you're a follower, like it's a cult. Sightings are often similar to those of sea monsters. Now, I do take offense, and I will object to this turn of phrase. Cryptids, in fact, are creatures we are hidden. We haven't found them yet. And among that list are, like Dave said, there's the platypus. In fact, the mountain gorilla. As well, and other creatures, right? The okapi. Now, what's the okapi? It's a little deer-like creature, which is, I guess, a mix between a giraffe and a zebra in a way, right? And people believed the okapi couldn't exist; it's made up until, of course, they came across one, and I guess they shot it and found it, brought it back to Europe. So all these creatures that say we say can't exist, well, maybe they do. And let's not make no mistake; these lochs in Scotland, they're very, very deep, and some of them are believed to be connected to the ocean or to the North Sea, as it were. Anyway, of all of the monsters in the lake area, the most famous is Nessie of Loch Ness, as you probably know. And I'm going to go through the lake monsters, and you're going to do monstrous creatures because it's easier that way. There's the Champ of Lake Champlain in North America, Bessie of Lake Erie in the United States, Chessie of Chesapeake Bay in the United States. There's the Ogopogo of Lake Okanagan in Canada. There's the Nahuelito of Nahuel Huapi Lake in Argentina. There's the Lake Tianchi monster of Heaven Lake, known as Tianchi in Chinese, and Konji in Korean, on the border of China and North Korea. There is Ishii of Lake Ikeda in Japan. There's the Brosno dragon of Lake Brosno in Russia. And finally, one of my favorite is the Mokele Mbembe of the Congo River in Congo. I want to spend 2 seconds on the Mokele Mbembe. Now, most of these lake monsters resemble plesiosaurs. A plesiosaurus is a water-dwelling dinosaur with flippers instead of feet.
Sort of like a brontosaurus.
Yep.
A little bit more slender, but yeah, with flippers and not legs.
Correct. The obvious, well, not obvious, but the one exception to that list is the Mokele Mbembe, which looks, when it's described by the locals, right, looks most like a diplodocus, which is like a tiny brontosaurus, tiny little, big enough, about as big as an elephant, a small brachiosaurus. So that's the Mokele Mbembe. But again, it makes sense for these creatures, for these large creatures, to live in the water. In fact, we know that the brontosaurus and brachiosaurus did live in the water because their breathing holes are on the top of their skull. And it makes sense for large creatures like that to go because they're so heavy. And it's a lot easier for them to exist in the water because the water carries some of that weight for them.
Neutral buoyancy.
Bingo, right? That's why large creatures like hippos and so forth are usually spending a lot of time in the water because it's just a lot easier on their organs, on their overall body structure. So it makes sense for these dinosaur survivors potentially to be found in lakes and rivers. Why haven't we found one yet? Well, look, we're finding new creatures all the time, even large ones. We're finding them all the time, and even creatures we thought to be extinct. And I want to say it again, but there's the coelacanth, my favorite example, and we come across them all the time. But we completely disregard what the locals say. We say, what would you know, ignorant person living in the jungle, not knowing anything, right? The one thing that the people in the jungle know is the jungle. That's the one thing I know. Okay, if you want to make that point, everything that you with your school learning, I tell you what, I dare any university-educated zoologist or paleontologist to go into the jungle and live for a month, see if you survive. And then talk to those. We'll talk to those people again, right? See if you respect them now, because that's what they do. They live in that area. They see these creatures, right? I mean, are all the reports necessarily accurate? Maybe not. But we should listen to the local people. Mm-hmm. Really, we should, right? Anyway, having said that, in order to survive man, which is us, for such a long time, a creature would have to be fairly stealthy and hide. Because I mean, look at the fate of the white rhinoceros, right? It's not the most inconspicuous creature, and it's on the verge of extinction. No, not now. And other creatures as well, right? That aren't as adept at hiding as other creatures might be. And maybe they're night active. Who knows? But the point is, talk to the local people, right? Anyway, Dave, tell us about the monstrous creatures.
The behemoth, rather large, is the primal, unconquerable monster of the land, as Leviathan is the primal monster of the waters of the sea, and Ziz is the primordial monster of the sky. There is a legend that the Leviathan and the behemoth shall hold a battle at the end of the world. The two will finally kill each other, and the surviving men will feast on their meat. Wow. The Leviathan. The Leviathan is a biblical sea monster referred to in sections of the Old Testament, the rather believable side of it. It is regarded as the monster of the waters, while the behemoth and the Ziz are regarded as monsters of the earth and the air, respectively.
Fascinating stuff.
It really is.
And look,
It really is.
we know now that there are large creatures in the water, and in ancient times. When I say ancient times, prehistoric times, geologically speaking, there were even larger creatures. I mean, right now the largest creature on the planet is the blue whale. Mm-hmm. It's big. It's very, very big, but it's by no means the largest creature ever to have roamed the earth. In fact, we don't know what the largest creature is that ever roamed the earth, be it in the ocean. One thing that is certain, in my opinion, is that it would have been a water-dwelling creature, not necessarily, not necessarily a like a fish-like creature, but certainly a creature that would have spent a lot of time in the water, because it just, it makes more sense from a body construction point of view, as well as fighting the effects of gravity. So chances are that eventually we should be able to find a fossilized record of such a creature, right? Eventually, I'm hoping, and but the thing is, maybe it's so large that we just haven't really looked. Like maybe we have overlooked it, because
that's a good point.
We think of life in terms of human scales, right? And anything like a blue whale to us is very, very large, right? An elephant is very, very large. To an ant, we are ginormous, and I guess an ant couldn't even comprehend the size of a blue whale. So, but it's all relative to where you stand, right? I mean, human beings are a certain size, between, I guess let's call it between 4.5 and 7.5 feet tall. It's about a 3-foot variance for most human beings, with most people clustered around the 5 or 6 foot mark. Mm-hmm. And probably, I think average human height is about 5'7", 5'8", and that's about 170 centimeters, right? And or 150. But the point is, we think of it in our scales, which is completely wrong. We can't. You need to think of it in the scales of nature, and in the scales of nature, we almost non-existent. So we still are looking for these creatures. But again, like I said, I think we might be overlooking them, because they're just too big, or we look in the wrong places. Anyway, the next bit is actually interesting. We're going to talk about chimeras and hybrids, which really is the same thing. In Greek, chimera is a monstrous creature that was composed of several different animals, like the platypus. Like in Greek mythology, the platypus would be chimera, because it's a beaver crossed with a snake, crossed with a duck, yes, crossed with a kangaroo, because it's actually it's marsupial. Believe it or not, right? So it's insane. It's a crazy creature. Other hybrids exist as combinations of human beings with animals and/or birds, as well as a variety of humanoid creatures, right? So I mean, the centaur, but we're going to get to that in a second. Now, in the animal spectrum here, and we're going to go this one by one. I think there's the first one that's mentioned is the catoblepas or catoblepas. Catoblepas. The catoblepas is a legendary creature from Ethiopia. Excuse me, described first by Pliny the Elder, a Roman scholar, and later by Claudius Elenius, also a Roman scholar. Its head is always pointing downwards, hence its name, which means to look downwards in Greek. The creature is said to have the head of a hog and the body of a buffalo, with scales on its back. Its stare or breath could either turn people into stone or kill them. The catoblepas is often thought to be based on real-life encounters with the wildebeest. Because you think about it, the wildebeest, or any pig for that matter, so the wildebeest is like a large cow-like creature, but they have their head down all the time. But even pigs could be a wild boar that's ruffling to the ground. Anyway, so it's certainly very interesting. Dave,
the griffin. It was a video game I used to play, and I used to always breed up the griffins because they were awesome. The griffin has a body of a lion and a head and wings of an eagle. Seen as guardians of secretly buried wealth, the griffin evolved from a ferocious animal of antiquity to become a symbol of strength and valor.
Yes, and I just want to make a point here on what they've said. Guarding secretly buried wealth. Let's assume for a second, big assumption, but bear with me, that in the past, civilization on Earth had the means to, change DNA, like we're going to, with CRISPR and all the DNA modifications we'll be able to do in the next, 20 years. Let's say that already happened in the past, and why not? If we assume that all things being equal, the same principles would apply then as they would apply today to the manipulation of DNA, right? I mean, in fact, I will put this forward in defense of my theory here. If you look at the catechus, the catechus is the staff with the
Pineapple.
Pine cone. Actually, it's pine cone on top, right? Which has two snakes looping around it.
As a double helix.
Double helix. It's an ancient symbol, which we trace back very far, and there's similar symbols all around the world. Why? So wouldn't it make sense? And again, bear with me here. If an ancient civilization, in civilization, in fact, that we no longer remember, left some of those or some of that symbology and symbolism with us. And the answer is yes, absolutely. And so to further strengthen my case here, I propose that the catechus was meant to symbolize the double helix of our DNA. That's like your fragmental memory, right? And then also, of course, stressing the importance of the pineal gland, which we've espoused many, many times before. So these two together clearly being very important symbols overall. And therefore, if there was a culture before us that had knowledge of DNA, as it were, why not then go further and say they could manipulate it? And then even go further yet, and why not create creatures at will, to their pleasure? I mean, they could create... And many of the mythical beasts might have been created for a purpose. They might have had, been genetically coded to fulfill a purpose, guarding or securing a place, or even in war to kill, or who knows, whatever, right? The point is that those creatures could be the creatures of legend to some extent.
30 years ago, I devised a question for people. If you could make any creature you wanted, what would it be?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mine was a long-haired butterfly.
Ooh, that's interesting.
I just wanted to make one.
That's...
At some point, no doubt, we'll be able to do it. So get your plans ready, guys. That's what I'm saying.
Now,
and the other point, Mickey, the other point I'm going to say to you, Mickey, is the Sumerian culture depicts either a reptilian holding a pine cone in the fashion of a tool, to be able to perform some function with it, and that same pine cone is on the end of that staff.
Yep.
So maybe that was an extension or a symbol of that tool, or maybe that's best held at length, so the staff enables you to do it, or it's symbolizing this device it's made for this purpose, right?
Completely.
Yeah.
In fact, go on.
So the Sumerians have been already labeled and described. Not Sumer, the Anunnaki were described as being able to have this skill already, and that's around about 250,000 years ago, 250,000 years ago, right?
Yes, exactly.
And
in fact,
all lines up.
Yes, it does. It 100% does. Now the kicker is this here, right? What Dave said is 100% correct. And this is really where it gets very, very interesting. I'll tell you why it gets interesting. We have got images from the Sumerians of creatures that are, I guess, they got wings, they got the heads of men, and the body of I guess, a horse, as it were. Others have the heads of animals, as David said.
Like a bird or a reptile.
Yeah, and all proportionally and anatomically correct, meaning I mean, you look at the creature. Well, if this were an actual creature, it could have lived. So, and to Dave's point, so the Anunnaki, those who came from on high, if the Anunnaki did, to some extent at least, the human race, the black-headed ones, not the black ones, the black-headed ones. And again, I'm saying this again, and in my opinion, this refers to the color of hair.
Yes.
Then why stop there? And in fact, some of these have bodies of lions and wings of birds and heads of humans. Wouldn't it be? I mean, if I look, let's say you have no ethical qualms doing this. Okay, so you can't feel bad, and then you can't feel bad using people as slaves or sentient creatures for your own purposes. You look at them as tools. If you're that creature, if you're that person that has no moral obligations or no moral boundaries, as it were, then you could do any of that. You could create creatures that do anything for you, because to you that's just a tool, right? And therefore, if you have the skill and the technological know-how, then guess what? That's what they do. And I believe away you go. I firmly believe, especially because we have so many of these depictions, and again, anatomically correct, in my opinion. Why wouldn't they have done it if you could, to guard treasure, to use in war as soldiers? I mean, imagine 10,000 flying lions with the heads of men coming at you. I mean, even today, seriously, man.
Yeah, I know, right? But think about this: if the chimpanzee has 7 to 10 times the strength of a human,
something like that, yeah.
Could you imagine what would be possible?
Completely.
Absolutely, you'd be trounced.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, all of these memories, in my opinion, that we have, which are now expressed as fairy tales, mythical tales, folklore, legends, you can call it whatever you want. And you should take it seriously, in my opinion, because these are very interesting things. I mean, even yourself, wouldn't, I mean, if you're just a godlike creature, wouldn't you want wings? Maybe wings that you can take off on as you wish, but, it allow you a self-powered flight. Why not? The limits, and in fact, we are not that far away from being able to do any of that. We're very close. Right, for what's stopping us for the moment is one, legislation. It's completely illegal to do any of it. Two, it's compute power. So most things that we can't do today that we can't do because of compute power. We don't have enough computer power to actually go ahead and do the necessary calculations to create all of that. But already, Dave, we're talking about bringing back the mammoth. Yeah, I'm sure you heard about that, right?
Yeah.
A creature, for all intents and purposes, I don't think it's extinct, but for all intents and purposes, science believes it's extinct. So we're bringing it back, like a la Jurassic Park, right? We're bringing back a creature that science says was selected for extinction. It's now gone. We're going to bring it back. This is just a tiny little step. Once we know how DNA, and again, compute power, right? Once we know how it all hangs together, which is what to switch on, what to switch off, we can create any kind of hybrid we want, including hybrids that are completely capable of procreation. Why not? Of course we could. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, at the end of the day, DNA is just a blueprint. It's just code. Think of it as code. Like, I mean, if you know about computer code, yeah, you can make computer code do anything you want. I mean, you want to do it well, you don't want to have too many bugs in it, right? But you can do whatever you like, and essentially, DNA is computer code for physical beings. That's all it is. Okay, it tells our bodies how to grow, what to grow, where to grow, and when to grow it. Right? That's it. That's all it does. That's its job. And it's very, very powerful. It's super powerful. And once we know how to manipulate it, and again, compute power, once we've got the right compute power, we can. I mean, I fully expect if I got hold of a time machine and nothing wiped us out over the next 200 years, if I came to this planet in 500 years' time and like I said, no massive catastrophe had killed us, I'd expect griffins to fly around and dinosaurs to serve tea. And all kinds of things.
And everyone lives underground because of all the things they made were too dangerous.
Well, yeah, that's right. But anyway, that's what I think we could do, and has probably happened.
Mackie, last week we broke a story which is that scientists are able to make changes to your DNA while you're alive.
Yeah, exactly. What?
Uh-huh.
Mic drop.
I'll be here all week. Right? So, knowing that is currently available to us, it's not very far. I really do. I do suggest that it's very close, if not already happening.
Oh, look, again, we're completely aligned. Okay, so what did Einstein say? He said, just because we can do something does not mean we should. Now, yeah. So what's at the what's at the 4-star general? thanks for your input, Mr. Einstein. What do you know?
And that's
off
the
you went,
plaque
right?
on the wall of the scientist who's the mad creator. I'll show you.
Oh yeah, exactly. It's like remember the Oz? What was it called? Yellow Brick Road thing. Oh yeah, Oz, the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
The flying monkeys. Why not?
Hey, my pretties.
Back to the drawing board. But yeah, so it's exactly right. It's all there. It is completely possible. Yeah, and you know what? Look, if it can be done, it will be done. It is that simple. And like Dave said, it probably is already being done. Some of these creatures that we find that are washing up, that we have some footage of, or even just anecdotal evidence, they could very well be creatures that escaped some lab. I mean,
like Montauk, Mickey. There was supposedly creatures that came out of that.
The Montauk creature, which I have a picture of here right in front of me right now, is completely mysterious. And I say this advisedly, but it just doesn't. You look at this creature and you think, so it's got like this beak, if you will, but it's got the body of a hairless, I don't know, a dog maybe. But it's a completely incongruous creature, and yet there it is. It's a physical thing that existed or lived at some point, right? It was born, it grew and lived, and then it died, and there it is. And I have never seen a creature like it anywhere. What is it? It's clearly some kind of hybrid, but who made it? Why they make it? I honestly don't know. All I know is there it is, right? There she blows, as it were.
I got something else, and that's the chimpanzee.
Yes. Yeah.
We all have heard of that one. So that's an effort to make a person or a chimp as smart as a human, or a human as strong as a chimp.
Yeah, it's
crazy.
No, but it is, but I mean, again, it's not impossible. It's in fact that's probably the easiest thing to do from a genetic point of view, right? Because we're so close in our material. Like, there's not much you have to do with it. Now, like again, the official explanation here is that it's not. Now the carcass was a decomposing raccoon, is what they said. Now I look at it and I go,
not so much.
but hey, you know what? I mean, there will always be denials like that. I mean, it doesn't look like a raccoon at all, right? But you know, be it as it may, it's all good. We have the pictorial evidence, we have pictures, and sometimes we have the physical evidence, right? And it's just crazy. It's just insane what some of the stuff looks like, and where these creatures, where do they come from? We don't know. I mean, this is a big place. The planet is a big place. We are on it, but we are on it in very specific locations. And we completely ignore the people that are elsewhere because they're the locals, the natives. What do they know, right? What do they know? Why are they afraid of the dark? Doesn't make any sense. It's insane, guys. I'm sorry, but we should listen to them.
Well, right? I'm going to throw it to you, but I'm going to throw it to you in this way. I spoke about the griffin. All right, that's the body of a lion and the head and wings of an eagle. And just when you thought that could be bad, Mackie, what did someone else add to that mix?
Which bit?
The hippogriff.
Oh, yes. That's pretty cool, right?
I'm throwing it to you.
I know. So if you are a Harry Potter fan, you know the hippogriff, right? It's a chimeric legendary creature, supposedly the offspring of a griffin and a horse. Specifically a male griffin and a female. So you've got the griffin, a mythical creature that mated with a horse, right? And all forgotten, you now have a hippogriff, and why not, Dave? Why not?
Yeah, if you didn't think a lion that can fly was bad enough, now it can outrun you as well, and probably want to eat you. Yeah, not good.
Not good.
Yeah, that's where we can take it. So that's clearly these creatures could absolutely exist. And they could have existed in the past, and they certainly can do in the future. The Pegasus. My kids love unicorns and Pegasi. Now, if you don't know, the Pegasus is a famous winged horse of Greek mythology. Riding on Pegasus, Bellerophon was able to defeat the Chimera. However, Bellerophon tried to fly to Mount Olympus, the realm of the gods, on Pegasus' back, for that matter. Not just standing there flapping his arms. Pegasus threw Bellerophon from his back for such a blasphemous behavior and was awarded his own place in Mount Olympus. Wow.
Now think about this for a second as well. Let's imagine that these superior creatures, that had the technology to do all this, created all of these things, right? And then something happened. Maybe there was a catastrophe, and only a few of the gods,
they left.
They left. Whatever. But
we're going somewhere else now.
Oh, there's only a few of them here, and whatever, and maybe they're not as high tech as they used to be, but they still have the tech, even though they don't understand how it works. Whatever. The point is that all of these creatures would still run around, and it would take, I guess, heroic humans to fight them, kill them, and make it safe for humans to live because of these creatures. And a lot of the mythology that we have is about heroes or warriors or whatever fighting these and killing these creatures. That's what, I mean, you look at any of the mythologies, that's what they do. It's an extermination report of fantastical creatures. That's what it is.
Good point.
Okay? And maybe there was a period, the heroic age, let's call it, where there was the primary purpose of I guess these warriors to kill these creatures, which clearly probably were engineered more intelligent than natural creatures, maybe with more capabilities, and certainly much more terrifying, and certainly some of those would have guarded a treasure, because that was the purpose they were created for. And all of a sudden you've got these other folk, working their way up from the Stone Age, into which they had been thrown by some kind of cataclysmic event, trying to get to those treasures, or trying to make it safe for human beings, right? Again, maybe there was this gigantic lion, wolf, gorilla monster that lived in the jungle and ate people, right? But it was made by some other god to guard its treasure. But the thing is, it makes perfect sense if you look at it from that point of view. Of course, it's completely unacceptable, because a culture like that never existed on this planet, according to accepted science. But if you do look at it from that point of view, it makes absolute perfect sense. Okay, in fact, everything does.
There'd be a queue of people trying to defeat them.
Yeah.
Because defeating them in our culture is going to escalate you to warrior status.
Yeah.
If you're on the other side of the coin, if you're the visitor here, or the overseers, or whoever you want to call those people, certainly a technologically more advanced race who can do whatever they want, it could be just the access to your chambers wherever you are. You've set up all these creatures who are going to be, stronger and scarier than anything they've ever seen, and they worked on all the other planets.
Yeah.
And as soon as they've fought so much, and you begin to be defeated, you get out of there.
Yeah.
Right. That could be the way that we're looking at this.
Yeah, and think about the Mount Olympus symbolism here as well, the imagery it creates. A lot of the ancient heroes either tried to get to Mount Olympus, or were actually given access, like Hercules was given access and made into a demigod, so he was allowed to live there. But Gilgamesh, going back 3,000 or even 4,000 years before those Greek myths, tried to do the same thing. Tried to find his mother, I think it was, or his father in a mountainous or high mountain where the gods lived. He was denied access, right? But nonetheless, there he is, and we have a lot of that, and we spoke about this in the past. We have a lot of that story element of the gods being somewhere high and people trying to get there. Now, they believed they could. I mean, you're not going somewhere if it's a mythical place, right? If it's not, if it doesn't exist, you don't go there. But these people were close to getting there. They weren't allowed to go there, mind you, but they tried to get there. Okay, and sometimes they were denied access. Otherwise, other times they were allowed, in, or whatever the case may be. But this was a real place where they were, a real place somewhere high in the mountains. Himalayas, maybe. It's pretty high up there. Elsewhere, possibly, I don't know. But the point is, and in fact, we have places like Machu Picchu, for example, which is super high in the mountains, right? And you look at it. I mean, people could live there easily. It's a very modern looking facility. But this is what we have to unravel the tapestry, the fabric, and we have to follow the threads we think hold truth in all these stories. Okay, because these stories would not have survived if they didn't have a kernel of truth. Okay, these stories were told for a reason, right? And we don't know how old some of these stories are, because they were told from, mother to child, and then, on and on. Like I said last time, Dave, the one thing you remember best are the stories that your mother told you, or your grandmother, or your father, for that matter.
Exactly.
The nursery rhymes, right? I mean, we've got a nursery rhyme that goes back to the Black Plague.
Mm-hmm.
That's 700 years. Okay, that's how far back that goes. That's a long time, right? And it has pretty much survived because of the meters and the very simple content. But it tells a very scary story, right? We all fall down. Yeah, it's good. Sorry, Dave. The next one is the unicorn, as we said. In fact, this is the one creature that you don't even have to think very hard to imagine that existed. There's the narwhal whale, like I said last time, right? And there's another creature, in fact, which we'll mention in the next show, which may very well have been, because it was actually a unicorn. It only had the one horn, not like a rhinoceros too, but there was a rhinoceros with just the one horn, now extinct. It usually has a single a spiral horn, this horse, right? The unicorn. It grows off its forehead, and it's one of the most revered mythical beasts of all time, appearing in numerous cultures. Not one. And this is really the kicker. The more cultures this appears in this unicorn, the more likely it is to have existed. The unicorn has come to be a symbol of purity as well as beauty, right? And it's one of the few mythical creatures not associated with danger, violence, and or fear. But the unicorn is known all around the world. It's really quite astounding, right? It's really quite astounding. Dave?
It sure is. And to not be connected with fear or danger is extraordinary, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
No violence, nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go on, yep.
No, go ahead.
No, the next one is an odd one, the vegetable lamb. That's really weird, right? I just wanted to say that.
You took the words right out of my mouth there. It's 17th century illustration of the vegetable lamb of, was it Tartary?
Tartary, yeah. Tartary, yeah.
The vegetable lamb, it's actually got it's got a Latin name, Agnus Cythicus, or Planta tarica barometes, is a mythical plant of Central Asia believed to grow sheep as its fruit. The sheep were connected to the plant by umbilical cords and grazed the land around the plant. When all the grazing material was gone, both the plant and the sheep died. In the medieval period, the plant was said to explain the existence of cotton.
I know, right? Weird.
Wow. That's like, it's very similar to the way a Dreamtime story
Yes.
it comes about as a question. Like too many rabbits in China, Meki, for instance.
Yeah. Why they built the wall? Rabbits. It's the rabbits. Sorry, that was an ad in Australia, and this was espousing the virtues of the internet and why people should have the internet, because this father was asked by his son, why did the Chinese build the Great Wall? And the father says, because of the rabbits, son, the rabbits. Because in Australia we have a plague of rabbits. Anyway, it's not so funny when you have to explain
and
it.
In Australia, we have the longest fence in the world.
That is true. The rabbit-proof fence, it's called.
That's
it's
right.
It's actually a movie, I think.
There's a movie as well about it.
There you go. Now we've plugged that enough. Now we get to the interesting bit, which is the part human. The part human
awesome.
Creatures, right? No, yeah, I'll be honest with you, I did not know all of them, and I did not know this one, because this is actually of Eskimo origin. So we're not just focusing here on the classical Greek or Roman mythology. We're looking at mythology in its breadth across the world, and this one is called an atlet or archiglet.
Good luck with that one.
I'm going to stay with atlet. In the Inuit mythology, and the Inuit are Eskimo, are a race of fabulous creatures with dogs' legs and human bodies. The lower part of the body is like that of a dog. The upper part is like a man's. And Inuit in Labrador and Hudson Bay also use this term to refer to inland Native American tribes. But the Inuit from Greenland and Baffinland, who have no such neighbors, regard atlet as part human, part dog.
Wow. The centaur. As we know, in Greek mythology, the centaurs are a race of mythical creatures that are half human and half horse. They're depicted as the head and torso of a man with his waist joined to the horse's withers. So the rest of the body without the head. The torso is the neck of the creature. Where the horse's neck would be, right? So that's something. I was always fascinated with the centaur.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
Fascinated. It was the thing that I just, wow, that could be. It just could be.
Imagine having an army of centaurs. So you got these winged lions, and then you got as shock troops on the ground, you got centaurs. Because, I mean, it's the body of a horse, right? It's racing at you. And the body of, I guess, as the upper body of a human being, you know. I mean,
it could hold a shield and a sword.
Oh, completely. And that's what they do. They've got, you know, also a bow and arrow. It's terrifying. Some people believe the centaur myth was based on the Mongolian tribesmen that were horsemen as well. You know, that they were like pretty much glued to their saddle, and they used bow and arrow. Now that's certainly a possibility, but if we go with the interference theory, then centaurs may very well have been real creatures. Which brings us to something very similar: a faun, and you all know a faun, even though you might not know. In Greek and Roman mythology, fauns are forest spirits that may help or hinder humans. They are half human, half a goat. Human from the head to the waist, apart from the addition of goat's horns, and with the lower body of a goat, but not four-legged, usually two-legged. They're often associated with the Greek god Pan and satyrs. Now, the interesting thing is that obviously that's exactly how we depict Lucifer. Therefore, a lot of people believe that the model for Lucifer, or the devil as we know him, right, is in fact the god Pan, because that's exactly what Lucifer looks like, except for maybe for the red skin we give him these days. But it's the lower half is a goat, you know, with the hoofs, or the cloven hoof, as it were, and the upper and the body of a human, including the horns. And that's now how we see the devil. Now, Lucifer.
We'll probably find out that was Coca-Cola behind.
Well, maybe. Hey, we can travel back in time. Yeah, what are we gonna do? We're gonna put our trademark way back. Yeah, Santa Claus didn't work out. Let's try the devil.
Yeah.
Satan Claus. There you go.
There you go.
But the thing is this: in the Bible, if you're that way inclined, there's no description of the devil like that. In fact, Lucifer, the light bringer, as it were, is described as the most beautiful of God's angels before the fall, and never described as a Pan-looking guy with red skin and horns, like we now have this image of him.
Such a surprise, Mickey, to see that.
Because
until I heard that, I'd assumed I'd assume the worst, of course.
Of course, absolutely. But no, not true, not true at all. Yeah, it's very interesting. Which brings me to my favorite mythical
Go on.
creatures. Oh no, it's yours. You can take it, my friend.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, you give me all the others. You give me my favorites.
Oh, okay, fair enough then. These are the Gorgons. There's actually sisters, right? Or they were meant to be three sisters. The Gorgons were three vicious female mythical creatures that lived on an island and possessed the ability to turn a person into stone by looking at them. And Ulysses or Odysseus was fighting them and in fact chopped off the head of one of them, which was Medusa. They possessed both beautiful and hideous traits, the most famous being their head of coiled snakes instead of hair. Of the three, Medusa is perhaps the most famous of the Gorgons, being the only one of the three who was mortal. She, like many such creatures, met her doom at the hands of a hero aided by the gods. Again, the hero here being Ulysses or Odysseus, depending on which translations you look at. But yeah, if you had the power to make any creature you want, why wouldn't you make a poor woman with a head full of snakes? I mean, if you can, right? If you can.
It's on my list. Oh, actually, no, the next one. I think I've met one of these. Harpy. No reference to anyone that I've ever met or seen. Mythical creature. Harpies in Greek mythology were winged beasts that were sent down by Zeus to punish, most famously, the prophet Phineas. Like many other second-tier Greek creatures, the Harpies were more prominent in artworks than in mythological literature, though, instead. And while they may occasionally be used in popular culture today, they are most widely remembered for their part in legendary adventures of Jason and the Argonauts, if we can take our minds back.
That's right. In his quest for the golden fleece, fascinating stuff. There, I do urge you to read up on your mythology. It's really there's a really good book called Comparative Mythology, which I have somewhere on my shelf here, and it just shows you and this is really the point as well, the parallels of these stories, creatures, and general notions. Right, very, very interesting similarities. Which brings us to the Manticore. I just like the name Manticore. That's just like if I had a corporation, if I was an evil genius, I'd call it the Manticore Corporation because it has that ominous sound to it in my mind, right? And now
not Zorg.
Nah. Globex. The Manticore of Central Asia is a kind of chimera that is sometimes said to be related to the Sphinx. It was often feared as being violent and feral, but it was not until the Manticore was incorporated into European mythology during the Middle Ages that it came to be regarded as an omen of evil. And that's something else that we need to understand here. The shifting meaning of things, creatures, and people. The word mean. I want to give you a very simple example. What do we think today the word mean means colloquially? It means unpleasant, right? It means not nice. What it actually means is careful with your money, right? I mean, extremely careful with your money. That's what the word mean. So Ebenezer Scrooge was a mean guy. Doesn't mean he was a nasty guy. It just meant he was a very stingy guy. Yeah. So the word of the meaning of the word mean is really just that you're very, very, unpleasantly careful with your money, right? Seriously, that's what it is, right? So, but yeah, anyway, so the next one is interesting. A mermaid. Mer is the French word for sea, and in German as well, Meer, with double E instead of the one. And a mermaid is an aquatic creature with the head and torso of a human female, and always female, and a fish-like tail. The male version of a mermaid is known as a merman, but you don't see many of those. And the gender-neutral plural is merfolk or merpeople. Merfolk or merpeople. Merfolk appear in a plethora of cultures worldwide. Legends often tell of mermaids singing sailors to death, enchanting them and luring them to their death. Again, this is one of the... now, people believe that the sea cow, as it were, or the... and I forget the
Manatee.
name. The manatee. That's exactly right. So, thank you very much. The manatee is or were mistaken for mermaids. Now, if you look at them, a manatee is or dugong. So there's two of them. There's dugong and a manatee. I think the manatee has got this single flipper, whereas the dugong has like more like a dolphin-like flipper. But I've seen them up close and personal in Sydney as well as in other zoos or aquariums in the world. Very large creatures. I mean, these are big creatures. And yes, I mean, if you were really short-sighted and drunk at night, you might mistake. You might mistake it
night,
for.
and a sailor who's been at sea for 6 months to a year,
At least, right? You might mistake it for a human creature, but again, I mean, I can see how that could have happened. But having said that, and I want you to think of it now in evolutionary terms. Science stipulates that life started in the oceans. I have principally no issue with that, and it's probably true as well. And then life made its way onto land eventually. Now, if that is true, then any life in the oceans would have had tens, if not hundreds of millions of years or longer to evolve into something like us.
That's a good point.
In fact, it is believed, again, evolutionary speaking, this is believed by mainstream science, that our ancestors were not the tree or savanna dwellers we think them to be, but rather sea monkeys. What do I mean? Or sea apes, I should say, not sea monkeys. Because of the way our body fat is situated, the buoyancy of the breasts, for example, the body hair and where it's placed, and a few other things as well that seem to lend themselves to this theory that in fact we were largely water dwelling in our time, rather than tree dwelling. Now, if you look at creatures like whales, they at one point were land dwelling creatures. That's the general consensus amongst the scientists. Same with the dugong, and same with like a narwhal. That's why I keep bringing up the narwhal and make a case for the
dolphins as well. They were
seals. Yes.
They were all mammals that went back to the ocean, apparently.
Correct. Now, is it possible that a creature like us somehow evolved in the ocean? And the answer is, why on earth not? Why not?
Yeah.
Would they be adapted to live underwater for any length of time? The answer would be absolutely. And again, these are worldwide legends. These are not specific to a specific place on the planet, but every culture pretty much has the legend of the Mer people. Therefore, one could assume quite safely that maybe they still exist, or at some point did exist, right? And how would you make your living? What would you? I mean, I'm sure, again, with human nature, there'd be good people and bad people, and some of them might. The siren song might have led ships to their wreck. I mean, we used to do that. Human beings, we put wrong signal fires up or false signal fires, and people or ships would crash against the rocks. And there's actually a term. Yeah, exactly, right. The beachcombers, right? So. Yeah. Anyway, what's the next one, Dave?
The Minotaur. In Greek mythology, the Minotaur was part man and part bull. You might have seen this yourself in literature. It was kept by King Minos of Crete in the center of a labyrinth, an elaborate maze-like construction designed by the architect, or Daedalus, specifically to hold the Minotaur itself. According to legend, the Minotaur required human sacrifices on a regular basis. Theseus, thank you very much, volunteered to be sacrificed, and with the help of Daedalus, was able to slay the Minotaur and escape the maze.
Yes, this is his beloved Eurydice, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, gave him the red thread, which so he could find his way back out of the labyrinth. Incidentally, this is the same labyrinth that led to the demise of Icarus. So Daedalus was the creator, the architect of the labyrinth, and his son Icarus. They both tried to escape from the labyrinth. They did it by fashioning themselves wings made out of feathers and wax. And while Daedalus warned his son Icarus not to fly too close to the sun, lest his wax be molten, his son did not listen and fell to his death, while Daedalus escaped. It's the same Daedalus that helped Theseus here as well. Interesting how it all hangs together. But yes, and it's believed that the Minotaur was in fact the half-brother of King Minos. His mother had made love to Zeus in the form of a bull and gave birth to the Minotaur in that way. So
it's
the
all
gods
happening in those days.
Well, Zeus did that a lot. He came to women as
in different forms.
Yes, a swan, one of them, in fact. And look, it's interesting how, again, I find it fascinating, the explanations and what part of it is true, what part of it is complete fabrication, and then trying to determine that is part of what I like to do for fun. Yeah, it's hey, you're listening to the shiny side out, okay? What do you expect? So, what? But yeah, look, it's all good. Look, we're coming to the end of the show pretty much, and we're going to probably stop it here. Don't go. There's a roundtable with Gerber, I'm pretty sure, Dave.
Yeah, that's right. So stay tight. Take a break, and join Gerber with his thing, his roundtable, and join us next week for 325. Show 325. See you then.